we need to be able to do things with some kind of precision. We have to be able to do them with some kind of ability to repeat. No offense to anybody else, but baking is more of a science than an art. Culinary can be an art, baking has to be a science. And so by that, we have to be able to control things, and if we're going to do that, we have to be able to measure things. So part of the deal is timers and baking. This oven jammed the other day because I think it was loaded wrong, or tried to be unloaded wrong. So when we load this oven, when you close the door, the lift pulls the rack up so it can turn, so it can rotate. And that is very important that it be loaded incorrectly or it's not going to lift at all. So this rack, this top pin on the rack here has to be put exactly into the center of the holders. And this bar has to fit with those little arms that are up at the top of this thing, just like this. You go in here, and it has to snap in. The problem was, if you get it part way out, it's not in all the way. When the door lifts, the rack going around will jam, and it will jam in. So it has to go back all the way. The other thing that I noticed was, if you turn the oven on, and you're watching it go around and you're not using the timer on the oven here, and you decide to take your rack out or your pan out and you open it here, it will stop. But if you notice, this rack can't be pulled out. So it will also jam in. So don't do that. Let it go all the way around, turn it off, hit the off button. It will rotate into the right position. So wait till it come around all the way, then you can actually unload your racks or unload the individual sheet pans themselves. This is part of the reason this jammed the other day, was somebody had tried to get it out and it was in the wrong way, so they tried to push it out the other way.
Oh.
And that got jammed. So what I ended up having to do was get in the oven and close the door. Because if you get in the oven and close the door, the carousel goes up and brings it up, and I was able to free the rack and get it free and coming out. But if you jam this, there's a turntable on top that may break or get out of alignment. If it breaks or gets out of alignment, there's going to be real problems. It's very expensive to fix. So always turn it off and let it stop coming to the right position before you pull it out. Okay?
How hot would you say this oven is compared to our deck oven? Like, how much hotter is this one compared to our deck?
Well, these ovens are set at different temperatures.
Yeah.
This though oven bakes faster because it also acts as a convection oven.
Yes.
It's a forced air which acts as convection. So when this one is set at, say, like you're set at 335 right now, which is probably the same temperature here.
Okay.
The bread here is going to bake. This is about 330, 320. Well, unless it's been changed. We had it between 325 and 330.
Okay.
This oven will bake a little faster at the same temp because of the forced air.
Okay.
It'll also bake faster at the top. The zoning is the top racks here are a little bit hotter than the bottom.
Okay.
The other thing is if you're going to put say 4 pans in this oven, don't put them all at the top or all at the bottom. Space them out.
Okay.
Give yourself a little bit of room in between. Now, if you're loading a full rack, you have to put them all together. But if you're going to go skip a rack as you do that, the reason why you want to skip a rack is you want to be able to have air circulating around it and things will bake more evenly. Otherwise, if you put 4 pans in, 1, 2, 3, 4, those middle two are not getting the same. The top one and the bottom one are going to bake differently.
Got it.
Okay, so spread it out when you can.
Okay.
That's the thing. The other thing is I'm glad to see the glass is relatively clean. It hasn't always been. Cleaning the glass actually allows you to be able to see inside and see what's going on. And if this light ever goes out, let me know. It's relatively easy to replace, and that way this light can always see inside.
Okay.
But the other thing is about running these ovens is, and I don't know if you're using it now, but the multi-timer. Are you guys using the multi-timer? Over here? Ours?
Okay. So you're going to cut it in half?
This multi-timer needs to be used because it's the precise way of being able to measure what's on what rack and what's in what position. The problem is that I've noticed that you guys are missing pins. And I had I've given a complete set of pins less than a year ago. I will try to get those pins and bring them in You can't buy these anymore. I have a friend make them for me on a 3D printer at his house. Yeah, so each pin is probably $100 per. But I'm going to try to get a complete set of pins, and the recommendation is that there should be one pin numbered 1 through 6 for each one of the shelves here. Okay, you should have 2 sets of colored pins, one for the right side and one for the left side of the oven.
Okay.
So you know when you're putting things in. It doesn't matter how you do it. When I baked, I did it by putting. We had a set of black pins and I think a set of blue pins. I did all the black pins for everything I put on the right. All the blue pins for everything I put on the left. You know, if you fill a shelf, you just put a black pin in.
Yeah.
But it would be shelf 1, shelf 2, shelf 3, up to shelf 6. You have to have 2 complete sets of numbers, 1 through 6, to make that work, plus a few extra pins that you want for the revent oven, so that you can run them on the revent.
Okay.
This is very precise, and as long as you get in the habit of doing it, but this is the thing, you have to do things the same way each time. If you get in the habit of doing them the same way each time, you're less likely to make a mistake. There's less likely to be a missed pin or an overbaked bread.
Okay.
And when we load this oven, and yeah, you got stuff in here already, so.
Oh, well, not yet.
Okay. What we want to do when we load this oven is we want to be able to load. There are 6 racks. What we don't want to do is load racks sequentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, like everything, because this will throw it off balance, and you'll know that it'll be off balance because you'll hear that horrible sound.
Yeah.
We've actually jammed this oven once, and I believe the oven at Mallard did it the same way, by not having pans positioned correctly and balanced correctly. So they don't have to be precisely there. However, it's easy to see. Rack 1 is opposite rack 4. Rack 2 is opposite rack 5. They don't have to be. You don't have to precisely balance it. But what we have to do is, if you're going to load up rack 1 first, then don't load 2 or 6. Load 3, 4, or 5.
Okay.
Put your next set of pins. I love to do it the next one here because it's think of it like a seesaw. You're actually getting things balanced off. Okay. So then opposite load. And get pans on the different racks so that you're not all loaded up at one time. The other thing that I've noticed is that I've seen bakeries stand with the oven with the door open, watching something go around, and the circulation of the air in this oven doesn't bake properly if the doors aren't closed. So the door should only be open when you're actually putting something in or taking something out, or checking the temperatures. The other thing is there is if you ever come in and this oven, the rotator won't go on, there's a trigger on the outside of one of these panels. It's on the left side of the oven, outside here. If someone has moved these racks and bumped up against it or taken one of the panels off, the rotator won't go around. You'll think it's broken. Everything else will work, but the rotator won't run. So always just make sure that those panels are shoved in clearly on the left-hand side. But using this timer is the best way to control and improve the baking.
Okay.
I've had good bread made from here, and I've had bread that wasn't so good made from here. And many times the problem is it gets overbaked. So what'll happen is we'll have bread's inconsistently baked, and the only way to improve that, the only way to become a really great baker and make great bread is to be able to be consistent. You have to be able to be consistent in what you're doing, and the only way to control it is to measure it. Measurement's important. Temperature, taking the temps of the bread, taking them the same way each time, proofing the bread, making sure that the bread's in the right order, it's coming in this way. This is all part and parcel of what's important for the baker to do their job. The kneaders have to do their job. You can't just put pans up anywhere you want. I see that they've been doing that pretty well, and putting them in order so that you know which pans are proofing in which direction. But all that in the loading of the oven is making sure that we're keeping things as consistent as possible.
Okay.
And the consistency is what's going to make better bread.
Got it. So how did you take the temperature of the breads when you were getting ready to pull them? Did you lift the loaf and then insert the thermometer, or did you temp from the top?
You don't have to. What you want to do is basically you want to check. This is kind of important. It's kind of confusing. You want to check the coolest loaf on the hottest pan. Okay. So it's usually the first pan you put in, and in this oven is hotter on the right cooler on the left.
Right.
The rear end is hotter up toward the top and a little bit cooler down to the bottom. Not
Okay.
a big difference, but enough of a difference that if you put these two pans at the same time on the same shelf, right and left, you'll notice that the one on the right will actually bake to be done sooner.
Okay.
So if you only check the one on the left, the one on the right is going to be overdone.
Ah.
All right. So when we check temperatures, you're using the flip thermometer.
Yep.
Okay. What we would do is, if I was going to put, say, three pans in on the first rack, and then go around and I'm going to put the next 3 pans in opposite. So I like them first on number 1 and then on number 4. Set my timers for the approximate time. Approximate times are usually listed up here, so you know about where it is.
Yeah.
But what you don't want to do is you don't want to overbake the bread, because overbaking bread is a lazy way to make bread. If you're going to overbake your bread, you're a mediocre baker. And if you're a mediocre baker, go work at Panera. Don't work here, okay? Because this requires more science. It requires more precision. So when we check our loaves, what we would do is we'd pull out that first pan, the first ones you put in, just to make a check. You can lift the loaf, but that requires a little more time. The other thing you can do, but you have to be good at visualizing, is you want to put the tip of the quick temp thermometer in the coolest spot in the middle of that loaf. So what I would do is I would check an internal loaf here, okay, not the outside ones, because the outside ones are going to be slightly done ahead of this. And I would put it down, I'm going to show you on the outside loaf, set it into here, and get it down to right about here. Because
Okay.
the coolest spot of the loaf is in the center, just slightly above halfway up.
Okay.
There's a small spot in there, which is the last place to bake.
Yeah.
And when our temperatures, our target temps for our breads, the ones that are set on the thing for honey whole wheat and cinnamon chip and everything, are set so that when that centerpiece comes to that temperature, whatever it is, 165, 168, 170, when that thermometer gets to there and you pull that loaf, the temperature is still going to rise in that loaf, but it's going to finish up and it's going to come out to be the right temperature when you pull it out. So it is easy to overbake bread, and it's also lazy to overbake bread, because you think, well, nobody returns a loaf usually being overbaked. They'll return a gummy loaf. So the tendency is, well, I'm just going to bake it a little bit longer. But that's not good baking. That's mediocre baking. So really good baking means that we need to be able to check those temps and do it quickly. These thermometers are reasonably good at doing a quick check. And if it's not ready, which probably on first check it's not, you want to slide them back in and turn the oven back on and reset your pin.
Okay.
So you reset your pin for 2 minutes or 3 minutes to check it again.
Okay.
And then you're going to go back in. But basically, on a round loaf, you don't do a lot of rounds. On a round loaf, it's straight into the center. When the toaster loaf, it's usually coming in at a point about here and down far enough just to get into the center. Not all the way to the bottom, because if you put it all the way to the bottom, you're going to be measuring. If I slam this in and go all the way down here, it's going to be reading
The
too
hottest,
high, right?
yeah.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull bread out and it's going to be gummy in the center. So we want to be able to make sure, so you have to be able to visualize. You have to be able to see that when you're coming in here. One other thing about loading the oven on both ovens that's extremely important is the pans must be shoved all the way to the back.
Got it.
They have to be pushed all the way to the back past this front edge. If you just put a pan in and don't pay much attention to it, they'll catch and flip. They did that. It happened at Kings Drive, and it happened at Mallard Creek. That actually the pans will catch on the front edge and pull around and snap up and catch between the two shelves. Because the shelf clearances are only about maybe 3/4 of an inch when they come around. So we have to make sure that we are making sure that all the pans are slid all the way to the back, and that applies to both the strap pans and the sheet pans.
Okay.
Both of them have to be all the way back.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other thing is following the intended temps, making sure that you get your breads hit right at the right mark, and understanding that bread temps continue to rise after you take pans out.
So they're still baking.
Still baking. This
Got
is
it.
called run out.
Yeah.
Run out is where the heat of the pan and the heat of the loaf continues to bake. So if you tore a loaf open immediately, it's going to look like it's underdone.
Yeah.
But if you hit the target temp in the right spot on the right loaf, okay, on the right pan, you
The
get
inner
that
loaves.
right to that and then pull it out. That loaf, as it sits, is going to, it is cooling, but there's still a little more run out for a couple
Residual
of minutes,
heat,
and
yeah.
the temperature continues to rise and then fall. So you'll see the temperature, if you could actually track the temperature, it's going up you pull it out, it continues to go up a little bit, peaks, and comes back down again.
Okay.
That's the science part of the baking that gets it exactly right. So,
Got it.
yeah. So this is extremely important for the safety of the baker, but also for the quality of the bread, for getting the final bread.
Do we need to know anything about the process timer, the steam timers? Do those work?
The steamer's not set up for this one. That's why we have the other. The other
Okay.
oven is our steam oven.
Got it.
The steams on this does have a steam function on it. It's not hooked up for it, so it won't run because these are not as efficient as the Riven ovens for making steam.
Got it.
There's nothing more efficient than the Riven oven for steam.
Okay.
Process timer. This is just, no. I don't even know if this thing works, but that's the reason we have this. This is a simplified timer they put on there just to, if you're baking one thing in there. I'm not sure why. Almost nobody, you can buy an oven this size, you're going to bake multiple things.
Yeah.
That brings up another point about the Riven oven. The Riven oven has to be vented after it's been run. Okay, so when you're going to turn the oven off, you're going to open the oven up, turn it to vent, and leave the door open. And it needs to be left open until the temperature drops. It doesn't have to drop all the way down, but the temperature needs to drop. Like right now, it's at 328. It needs to get down to maybe 250 or 240. And the reason why we don't just turn it off and keep the door shut, the reason we don't turn it off and leave the door shut is that the oven is going to cool unevenly, and it's going to cause warping of there's steel balls in there. They're like golf balls. There's 350 of them along the left-hand side here. And I know because I put them in, each and every one of them. And they heat up, and they're the thing that causes the steam when you use the steam oven. So when water pours down there, it's important that they and their tray that they sit in not be warped. And if you turn the oven off and don't let it vent, it can cause warping of the parts of the oven. Not only that, but the turntable.
Okay.
So if you vent the oven and let it run down, it doesn't have to come all the way down to 100, but it needs to get down, say, into between 200 and 250. Down
Okay.
between 200 and 250. Then you can turn it off and shut the oven.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions about that?
So our deck oven essentially needs to be between 325 and 335.
That's where we were running it because that was where it was best for the breads. Now,
Okay.
if somebody has changed it,
Yeah.
sometimes that'll happen. Then it can be rechecked, but you should be able to tell based on, again, this is experience. Experience of the baker is that if my loaves are supposed to be baking in, say, 40 minutes, 38 minutes, and they're taking 45 minutes, something's changed. And if that's the consistent thing. Now, it also means how many times is the door open, how many things you've been putting in. Obviously, if you bake one batch of bread, put them in, close the door, it's going to bake faster than you
The
put
next
in
batch.
3 or 4 different batches and go up and down. So you have to consider that. But that's part of the experience of becoming a good baker, is understanding your product, understanding what happens. If you try to run the oven too high, the tendency is you're going to overshoot on a lot of loaves. Yes, you'll bake them faster, but they'll be done so much faster that you can't control it. And if you put it too low, you're not going to get quite the right set.
Okay.
So that's why this oven, I believe 325 was where we had it set.
Okay. It's at 350 now, but even Chef Sandra's concern was we're getting,
It might be 350.
it's
Yes.
getting, the color's a little dark.
It's set at 340 right now. I don't know what the actual temperature is.
Okay.
Because understand that that's a measurement that may not be precise.
Got it.
What's really precise is the thermometers that we use. That's
Okay.
the key.
Okay.
So, and you can throw an oven thermometer in there just to see, but they're off. They can be off by 10 degrees or so. My thought is you can edge it down. I thought we were at 330. And we assumed that it was running a couple degrees low, so I think we assumed it was at 325. It's set at 340 now. If they're getting too dark, if the bread is darkening up too much, then it's an excellent point. We would inch it down, but not much.
Okay.
That would take it down maybe 10 degrees.
Okay.
Take your set point down 10 degrees, but then make sure all the bakers know, whoever's baking, make sure they know this, because you're going to be aware that it may take a little bit longer for the bread to get done. But again, the precise thing is to making sure that you're doing it the same way every time. That's what allows us to control.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and you really need to be using the multi-timer. The multi-timer is an extremely valuable thing because I can put multiple pins in at multiple times. It never fails me to go around and set off the timer and make sure that it's going. I can also set timers for the revent on there, but they should be a different color so it's not confusing. And if you have more than one person baking at a time, there needs to be good coordination between the two bakers.
Got it.
What color pin are you using for what size, that kind of thing, or if you're handing it off. Janet and I used to bake together, and Janet is, I'm just going to say it, Janet is the best bread baker in the Carolinas. I don't know anybody better than her. I'm really good, but she's better than me.
Yeah.
And the real key about that is having the experience, the 45 years of food experience, and having done it enough that she understands the baking of it. So that's the precision of being able to do it. But you have to be able to do it the same way. She would not bake without a multi-timer. So I can just tell you that. I'm going to see if I can't get you full sets of pins.
Thank you, Jeff.
So 1 through 6, at least 2 different colors, and then you can use the other pins for the revent. All right?
Got it.
Yeah. But this is the potential to make great bread here. And we can make great bread or we can make mediocre bread. And I think the real thing is this bakery and King's Drive have won, in the 14 years that we own the bakeries, we won 6 bread awards. And we finished in the top 10 5 times in the country.
Wow.
For whole grain breads. We also won the best bread award in Charlotte, the best bread bakery in Charlotte. We didn't do that. It wasn't lucky. It was we did it because we were doing the measurements the way they needed to be done. So by precisely measuring, using the science allows you to make things the same way each time.
Okay.
And this bakery can do this as well. We have all the tools and the formulas and recipes and everything. It just takes the attention to detail.
Got it. That makes sense. Is there anything else I need to know about the steamer on the revent?
No, you guys are still making sourdough, right?
Yes, we are.
French or baguettes, whatever?
Yes,
Okay.
we're gonna start baguette
Yeah.
soon.
How long do you steam?
19 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably a little overkill. The steaming happens in the first 5 to 10 seconds of the steam coming in is probably good enough.
Okay.
But you can, if 19 seconds is what you guys are doing, that's fine. That's the length of time that water's pouring down those little steel balls that I mentioned, they're like golf balls on the side. And the steaming causes the gelatinization of the surface of the bread, which is what causes the crust and crust up. The other thing is the vent. I did want to mention the vent. The vent is closed right now. If you look here, you can see 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dots, 4 dots. Okay, what that is its degree of venting. This vent should always be closed, except when you're making sourdough. When you're making sourdough, what we do is we steam the oven, and I don't know, hopefully you guys, I don't know if you've changed your recipe or not. We steam the oven, set the timer, put the bread in, push the button, close the door, push the button. It steams for 19 seconds, whatever. You should set a timer for 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, then we throw the vent open.
Got it.
Because what we want to do is we want to steam for the first few minutes, and then we want to vent that steam out.
Okay.
So then we vent for 5 minutes.
Okay.
And that removes any excess moisture, which allows the bread, because in the first 5 minutes you're getting oven spring, which is where the loaves are degassing, the gas coming up, and the loaves will rise. That is the part that is going to set the crust on the outside of the sourdough bread. So as it sets on the outside, once you get to that point, no more steam is going to help you. And you hurt yourself by having higher humidity in the oven.
Ah.
So what you want to do is vent the oven.
Okay.
So then we pull the vent back for 5 minutes. And just remember that any other time you're baking, bars, cookies, whatever else you're doing in here, non-steam breads, the vent should be closed.
Keep it closed. Okay.
Otherwise, you're just wasting gas, because but the vent is a hole about this big in the top of the thing with a flat valve, and that's what this operates.
Okay.
So that's the time that you really should be using this. Is you need to vent it 5 minutes after turning the oven on with the steam, and then sometime after that you close it back again, like another 10 minutes or so. Continue to finish your baking, but it should not be open when you're not cooking. One other thing is make sure the pans are centered on this rack too. When you shove them back, it's sort of an obvious thing, but like the Cutler oven, pans have to be in the right position. So what you want to do is you want to make sure they're not hanging over on any one side. I've come in and seen pans sitting 3 or 4 inches over the side of it. It's dangerous because if it catches the side of the thing, it'll snap the turntable off the top.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's about an $1,800 repair job. So we want to just make sure that the pans are centered here and the pans in the cutler oven are shoved all over.
Got it.
Okay?
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
I appreciate that.
Well, and this is like I said, this is science. And we really want to be able to the great art. The art of baking is being able to do the same bread, the same day after day after day. That's really where the art comes. If you want to be artistic in making your breads, that's great too. That's fine. But the idea of being able to make good bread and then bad bread, that's a problem because customers love our bread and they want to bring it to people. So think about this: go to a restaurant. You go to a restaurant and you have a great meal, and you love it. The service is great, the food is great. So you get your parents and you come back with them, or your best friend to come back, and the food is okay, mediocre. How do you feel? You feel like an idiot because you're the one that recommended it, and you think, well, last time we were here it was really good. That inconsistency will kill a business, a food business, almost faster than anything else. Pricing, location, or anything else. So being able to have your customers be able to count on you making good bread is where the top quality product comes in. The only way to do that is to be able to control the process. The only way to control the process is by measuring temperatures of the doughs, timers that are set. All of these things have to be set just in the right fashion.
Got it. Okay.
Hey, we're making bunnies.
Yeah.
That's awful.